Well, I'm sure you and your family know how it seems violent crime has really risen in the last few months. We've seen big increases in the murder rate. Also, what's been happening in taverns. Remember, the 16 people killed at the tavern in the Newzroom informal settlement in Soweto. What was it, just 2 weeks ago? Ziyanda Stuurman is an independent security analyst. She's author of the book, Can We Be Safe? The Future of Policing in South Africa. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. There's plenty of evidence. The murder rate is higher. All the categories of murder, as I understand it, pretty much going up, whether it's vigilantism, whether it's other things. Is it possible to isolate what the causes of this upsurge in violent crime are?
Well, good afternoon, Stephen, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about this issue. I think, look, we are a very violent country. South Africa has a violent crime problem. We average about 21,000 murders a year, and I think more than in recent times, really, South Africans are waking up to the fact that violence is indiscriminate, it's gratuitous. And particularly we have an organized crime problem that has exploded really in the last 2 years, which now has started to affect small businesses. And, as much as these shootings are seemingly happening at taverns, I think this is actually across the board an indication of violence and extortion, particularly targeting small business owners, of which taverns are exactly that.
Why? Is it because of the lockdown? Is it because of what happened during the pandemic? I know that crime patterns can also just change sometimes. They do.
Precisely. I would say it's honestly all of those things. You had a situation where gangs that were typically involved, in drug smuggling, maybe human smuggling, gun running as well, really having to change their tactics because of our very harsh lockdown restrictions during 2020 and 2021. And so they turned to the next easiest sort of revenue or stream, which was then to target small businesses that could stay open during the pandemic. And now, sort of post-pandemic, if you want to call it that, these gangs are fighting for turf. They're, rivals, obviously. And I think that's the main issue that we're seeing now.
So if this is happening, and there's probably, I'm presuming this is not one big network. This is different groups of syndicates, different groups of networks, different groups of men. Each single one is a different policing problem. That's a lot of police work to try and break this up.
Precisely. I agree with you on that. I think that, as much as we can say they're sort of singular networks or groups that are in different cities and striking at different times, we should also we should expect to see a coordinated effort from the side of the police, particularly in terms of crime intelligence as well as anti-gang units that exist at the provincial level and work across regions as well. This is really going to take a fairly sophisticated operation from the police, and they're already on the back foot at this point. So I would expect to see really quite a lot of resources going into both the rapid deployment of additional police resources, where there have been specific targets at the moment, but largely across the board to see a much more sophisticated operation that takes into account that many of these groups are disparate and singular, but that they may be operating together as well.
So if you have a group of men, I'm presuming it's men, and they put pressure on a small business, it's one thing if they arrive and they use their fists or the threat of violence. It's quite another if they arrive with guns. Are we seeing an increase in illegal guns?
Yeah, no, it's according to research by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. South Africa may have as many as 2.35 million illegal firearms. Many of these firearms are stolen from police caches, from private security businesses, from military caches. So we really have an issue with leakages within the system, and then some of those firearms also stolen from private firearm owners. We know that it's not easy to get a weapon in South Africa, particularly high-caliber firearms such as AK-47s. So that's also another deep-rooted cause of this entire issue, is that these gangs are well-armed, they're clearly well-resourced, and at this point, like I said, they seem to have one up on the police.
There's so many consequences from this. If I was running a small business, what I would do is I would now want to go and find a private security company. And to be honest, I probably want a private security company that threatens to meet the threat of violence. Let me put it like that. I would want someone who also comes with a gun. I'm not saying that's right. What I'm saying is that violence could now escalate.
Precisely. Look, what you're talking about is a very human reaction. It's not even the reaction particularly of a small business owner. It is a human reaction to want to protect, what you have and what is rightfully yours. At this point, we really do need to see some very, very, public as well as, again, sophisticated strategies and tactics being put in place by police, such as hotspot policing, such as, an operation that really strikes at the heart of many of these groups and where they're operating. Otherwise, we do lose that sense of trust, or we do lose that sense that the police has any capacity to deal with this issue at scale.
We have a police minister, Becky Cele. He goes from crime scene to crime scene. He talks at each one. He doesn't always let other people speak. Is he the right person to be doing that? Is the response that he represents from government the right response?
It's reactionary. It's certainly that. It really depends on person to person. Some people like the fact that he's at crime scenes and he's travels very quickly to places. We've seen that his travel bill is incredibly large. It's now in the millions, particularly because of the strategy that he likes to use, to visit multiple crime scenes and, ostensibly to comfort victims or to seem responsive to the issue. But at large, I think that what we're seeing is that this has happened over multiple years now, and we don't have a strong policy base for the police. We certainly are lacking at the operational level, again, with the turmoil and the feuds between him and previous police commissioners. So I would say, again, at best, his strategy is reactionary, and I wouldn't necessarily say that it's right.
I can understand a democratically elected politician wanting to be seen to hear the pain of the people. And I think there's an important function that's played there. We also have the National Police Commission, whose job it really is to fix this problem. And I mean, we can have a time when this partnership may work well. I can't really think of a time when it has in our democratic history, I'm afraid, for various reasons. But the National Police Commission also needs to do their work. They need to be supported by people. We still see a lot of infighting at the top of the police.
That's correct. I think that as an institution, and many others have written and researched on this as well, but as an institution, the SAPS is really struggling to shake off the effects of state capture. What really happened during, the past decade is that police officers were pitted against other officers. Some saw themselves as Zuma men, as Ramaphosa men, as, Sithole men, Cele men, et cetera, et cetera. And once you have an institution that is that fragmented and really paranoid at the institutional level, it becomes that much more difficult to mount a united effort against what we're now seeing as a really rising threat of organized crime, going into communities and taking over many communities too.
Ziyanda Stuurman, thanks very much indeed. Do appreciate it. Crime analyst there. So much to talk about when it comes to violent crime.